That's good on YouTube.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. It's 3 o'clock and this regular meeting of the Economic Opportunity Advisory Board is now called into session. That was my welcome to all of you. We have some new members of the board and some guests sitting in. I'd like to begin with Ben Frederigo introducing a new Economic Development Department staff member. And then Cassie, would you introduce your new board president? Wonderful.
All right, well, like to introduce Allison Harford. Ally, who is our new Assistant Director of Marketing in the tourism office on the tourism side. And we're extremely happy to have her and her great many skills as part of our team. So as some of others have named it, the dream team is now complete. So we've got Ben Alter and Mick, and so it's hard to keep up with everyone. So just wanted to introduce her to everyone on the economic development side, the advisory board, and have her attend as a guest and see what we do over here.
Some of you may recognize Ally's byline, longtime reporter, editor, graphic designer for Sun News. And now that the dream team is assembled, it's time to wake up and get to work. Okay. Cassie?
This is Randy Martin. He is a member of our board and was graciously volunteered to take over for Shaylee. Shaylee, who has a lot of commitments, which is getting a little overwhelmed. And so Randy is going to take over for her on this board. So we're excited to have him. He's got a lot of really great experience that he's going to bring to the table for us.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Great. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you. Thank you for
Some people know that Randy is affiliated with Red Tail. Correct?
recently resigned from Red Tail.
Is
Yeah.
freed from the Red Tail.
Yeah.
He's been released from the Red Tail. He's been a great representative of Red Tail, and
Thank you.
you may remember that Red Tail received a portion of our TRT diversification fund spend down. He was responsible largely for moving Red Tail into the shuttle business, can I say?
Yeah, sure.
Shuttle business between Canyonlands Airport and Salt Lake Airport. And so welcome.
Great, thank you very much.
Ben Alter, would you introduce Zach?
Sure. Well, I'll let Zach introduce himself in just a moment, but we have Zach Whitwell. I hope I'm saying that correct. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Who's here. He has been appointed by the Department of Workforce Services. For those of you who have been on the board for some time, this has been a vacancy that we've had. And so we're really excited to bring Zach on. I think that's about all I have to say. Zach, if you want to speak to your experience, your background, I know you have some experience with similar boards. We're excited to have you on.
Thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is, like Ben said, Zach Whitwell. I'm with the Utah Department of Workforce Services. I am the regional director over the eastern part of the state of Utah for the Department of Workforce Services, so over the 7 counties, which does include Grand County. I've been in that position for about the last 8 years. Prior to that, I've worked in other positions within the department. My team primarily handles the workforce development division and operates all the offices. And so if you go into one of our offices, you're more than likely you're meeting with a member of my team there with that. I also currently serve in an advisory capacity on the Daggett County Economic Development Board in regards to this grant. I appreciate Ben reaching out. He and I will have a couple more discussions still go with this here, but happy to at least temporarily help out in this position as we try to figure out how to provide the support the board needs to fulfill the bylaws, rules, and stuff. So thanks, Ben.
Zach, thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate you being here.
We'll do everything we can not to scare you away. But we will rely on your experience with RCGs in Daggett. So thank you for that. For those of you online in the room, Commissioner McGann has joined us. So thank you for being here. I know you were scrambling.
Rush
Yes,
here.
yes, yes. So, online, I'm gonna try to do this randomly, start with our board members, so that would be Melissa.
Melissa Jeffers, a member of the board community at large.
Thank you for being with us today. Jasmine?
Jasmine Duncan, non-voting member of this board, Mayor of Castle Valley.
Wonderful. We have a guest, Maurice, how are you today?
Doing well. I'm here at the Beacon After School Program. I'm an ACC AmeriCorps member, and I'm one of my students who are in the Entrepreneurship Club wanting to join in and learn and just see how decisions are made here in Moab.
Great.
A brave young man. A brave young man. But we're delighted to have you here. I know that Ben's going to speak to the Beacon program later on the agenda. So thank you for that. Let's start around the table. Cassie?
Cassie Oliver, the Executive Director of the Moab Chamber of Commerce and a member of the board.
Randy Martin with that, Moab Area Chamber of Commerce.
Wonderful.
I'm Deborah McKee. I'm the new outreach manager for the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunities, serving Grand County, Carbon, Emory, and San Juan. Happy to be here.
What was your name again?
Deborah McKee.
Glad you're here, Deborah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming up.
Down. Oh, no, it's
Down.
north. It's north.
Yeah.
Down in elevation.
Chris Wilson, member of the board, private sector, Kirkcroft.
Forrest Rogers, member of the board, resident of Grand County and serving as the board chair.
Mary McGann. I am a liaison for the Grand County Commission, non-voting member.
Glad you're here.
Ben Federgill, Director of the Economic Development Department, Grand County.
Wonderful. What a team. Every time I write notes about the members who are here, I just write initials so I can make sure we have a quorum. And when I write Chris's initials, I think of Chris as much as I think of conventional wisdom. So, or creative, in Chris's case, creative wisdom, maybe working towards controversial wisdom. But, we've got our own dream team here, and glad to be here. Next item of business is to ask if anyone is ready or needs to report conflicts of interest, disclosures, or ex parte communication.
Forrest, I don't know what the discussion about Beacon will be, but my friend and my business partners, Zondra Odland, is the Beacon after school director. So I'll say that now. I've had discussions with her too, so I'll just say that.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have no citizens to be heard other than those of us sitting around the table, no presentations. So we'll move into the first part of the agenda, which is the approval of minutes. We have several meetings to go through, and I'm not a Robert's Rules of Order guy, so I don't know whether we can do these collectively or individually. We can do them collectively, individual. That was the right answer. Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the July 31st, August 13, September 25th minutes of the Economic Development Opportunity Advisory Board.
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, it's been moved. Second.
We need a board.
Randy?
I'll second.
There you go. Okay.
Randy's on the board.
Okay.
We just replace you.
Second item on the agenda is the recap of the Rural County grant discussion that Colette and Deborah and James Dixon from.
Hey, I'm sorry, I missed this real quick. Was there an actual vote on those minutes or just a first and a second?
Oh, come on, you're the Robert's Rules of Order guy. You finally spoke out. Yes. All approved.
Finally, it didn't take me that long.
Well, you know, I was ready to move things along.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? Okay, we're good.
Unanimous, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Sure. You know, I love
You-
my minutes. I just want to make sure everyone's appreciating them.
And you've been at this so much longer than I have, so that's why I rely on you. Second item is a recap of the Rural County Grant discussion that we held last week. Colette and Deborah participated along with James Dixon from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. Got it right, Deborah? Ben and I sat in on that. So would you start?
We just, we had a good meeting with James and, Deborah and Colette to answer some questions they had about our grants, our applications. Also, they wanted to review who was on our advisory board and make sure that we were compliant with all the roles. So, the first part was they, and I want to frame this correctly, Deborah. So they wasn't a concern, but they were very aware that our Moab childcare was an ongoing ask that had been asked for multiple cycles. And so what we clarified in the discussion was yes, but this was heavily discussed in our advisory board, and that the strategy with the funding was to get them on their way to their goal of being self-sufficient and self-funding. So while yes, this was recurring, this was very much like our Moab area land trust and housing, that we were taking a phased approach, and that this was a huge need in a population of 6,000 where a tourism economy would demand at least 50% of the population to be working in that industry. So I think I summarized that correctly. And then the other asks, and it's worth noting that was noticed, that we need to defend our good decisions with the compelling argument. So we made the compelling argument. The second piece was regarding the chamber. And we pointed out that the chamber has taken a dedicated initiative with bringing in a really good executive director that is moving forward with some long game planning, that they want to build the organization and fulfill different needs, especially in a community that's high demand for talent, where it's tough to get workforce and SBDC representation, the things we've all discussed. So we very much made the compelling argument about the growth of that, the quality of the business summit, the Grand County Business Summit that was done this year, the quality of speakers and the attendance and the traction that had gotten, as well as the importance of the trainings that they're doing, and now the outreach to try and grow the chamber as a Moab and Grand County infrastructure organization. Did I quantify that correctly, Deborah? And then
Well, there's a question on that one, just a short one. Was the question the same from the state regarding the chamber as it was with Moab Community Childcare? Essentially, the question was about reoccurring.
Deborah,
Right.
is that on the recurring? Is that?
Yeah, just kind of general, that these organizations have received funding more than once, and why, and are they becoming dependent on the funding? And I mean, everybody did a great job of kind of explaining the reasoning behind it, because James Dixon, our director, isn't in every conversation that we have, so we just kind of had to summarize the discussions that we've been having. And he encouraged potentially looking at more diverse projects in the future, or what is the future going to hold? Are these organizations going to always be getting funding and things like that? So
Yeah, and then the third part of the discussion was just the makeup of our advisory board, and the fact that we did not have the workforce services role filled. And this was before we knew that Zach would be heroic and join us quickly. So we discussed different options and different members of the community that are in some type of workforce development, whether it's the private sector through the public school system or USU. And hats off to Ben Alter, who pulled together a lot of meetings and talked to a lot of people, and then found us in the end, the right person in the last 24 hours that fulfills that role and can be appointed, that we satisfy the requirements of the board makeup, which now lets us move forward with our grant application, because that was putting it temporarily on pause.
What was Zach's last name?
Oh, Whitwell, Zach, right here. Zach Whitwell, right here.
Whitwell?
Well,
Oh, okay,
lower right
okay.
corner.
I heard him talking when I came in.
Yeah. So, so Deborah, did I, in
Yeah.
Forrest and Ben, please add in what other comments you took from the discussion there?
Yeah, a full board is imperative to the process. And so I think anytime we are really looking at that grant specifically, or any of the reporting, the process of applying, anything like that, we really need to have a full board. So as soon as somebody's out, get out there and find somebody else to take their spot, but.
My comments were primarily focused on the fact that these investments, part of the reason these are recurring investments is because we're trying to build capacity for the local community, capacity in terms of childcare and capacity in terms of business support services. And as a nonprofit leader myself, I understand the issue about recurring support, because we often call it soft money. It can go away and you can't really build a future around that soft money. So I appreciated the questions James asked. I appreciated the both Colette and Deborah stepping in as well to help us articulate what we needed to do to get James assurance that we're not trying to play fast and loose. But we are trying to make investments that count and matter in the community. So any questions about that?
Well, also.
Go ahead, a
we
few words.
have a big
Once Ashley's
diversity.
done.
Sorry, I'll be quick. We haven't had, we need, one of our projects is to encourage more people to apply.
Yes.
So we get that, but I think that both these organizations know that there is a limit.
Right.
And that more people will be applying, so we're on track to.
I have just a comment.
Sure,
It's,
please.
I think part of towards affordable housing and childcare. Those are both credible needs in our community in order to support our our workforce. And if we have to, if their requests are valid, I see supporting it, because there is so little. If we make the childcare quality, to make it quality but have it affordable, may always need
Right.
assistance.
Right.
It might continue year after year, and I'm okay with that.
I think that being able to report on Rob Walker's plan to become self-sufficient in a few years and having the financial data to show the progress that's being made, I think that was reassuring. Certainly with the investment through the RCOG in the community land trust and the project that they're working on, there's a very clear sense about their financial needs, their financial projections, and there's visible evidence that they're moving forward. So I think that that's something that we can also feel good about. And kudos to everybody who's been involved in it.
And one thing we did put in that discussion was the fact that there'd been a lot of rigor around getting to these two entities and the amounts. And of course, Colette and Deborah had been involved in it and reiterated that this wasn't just figured out in a quick meeting, that this was discussed several times to the point that the ratios were discussed, and there was a lot of rigor. So we should have nothing to worry about not being covered in these applications.
Ben Alter, you were going to say something?
Sure. Yeah. Just a few small things. The first is, I think it's already been said, but I just want to stress that the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, they weren't really, I think their level of concern with our application was low, if not appropriate, and they're asking for explanation. We are happy to provide it. The reality is the application is pretty limited on word count, and we used every word that we could. And so it's not surprising that they wanted to hear a little more. And so I'm glad that they gave us the opportunity, but it's a totally amicable thing. They're a great partner. I'll also say that I'm really excited to have Zach on the board for however long he's on the board. I think his service to Daggett could be wonderful. I think we could take some of our applications and run them by him and just get an outside opinion of, you know, are there ways that we are not thinking about using these funds that could really support us? That's not something we have to do now, but you know, I think that his thoughts on that will probably be really helpful to us. And yeah, the last thing I'll add is in regards to Zach's membership on our board, which I want to say I'm super stoked about. I pulled off of the agenda for today just because I wanted to ensure that there was enough space to focus on our strategic planning process. But the statute that establishes this board and allows Grand County to apply to things like the Rural County Grant and the Rural Communities Opportunity Grant requires that we have a workforce development representative on the board. There has been a historic misunderstanding at Grand County's level about what this means, and has been interpreted to mean a Department of Workforce Services individual. And not only is that not the case, but I think Department of Workforce Services is somewhere between reluctant and at capacity to serve in this capacity. So we're really happy to have Zach, but I think that next meeting, we're going to be talking about a very small revision to our bylaws to clarify what that role will look like, because it does not need to be limited to the Department of Workforce Services. Now, I encourage the board to slowly start thinking about what kind of candidates they would like to see for a workforce development representative from our region, and any language they want to use to potentially clarify it. I don't think there's going to have to go much that goes into this bylaws revision. It'll be a sentence or two, but I just wanted to let everyone know that we have been operating under this misunderstanding of the statute, and it's actually a bit broader than we're used to. And so while we're really happy to have Zach here, I think that we're going to broaden that. And then, you know, if Zach, if you want to stay, I think we're pretty happy to have you. But also, if you're at capacity, like most people at DWS, we will be able to pull from other workforce development pools within our region, and that can look like a lot of different things.
Thanks, Ben. I would also echo, I would really recommend the board kind of look at that and kind of operate from this mindset of a local workforce development staff, like Ben's mentioned, or candidate. That way you're not tied or reliant on just our department. I'm happy if I can make things work, I'm happy to stay on the board and do what I can moving forward. But this is more of a, right now, at least as of today, it's more of a temporary, let's do this so we can get you guys in a good spot, and then we can figure things out moving forward. So
Thanks, Zach. Melissa?
No, I was just going to say selfishly, super, super excited that you're here, Zach, and really excited that Ben was able to pull that off. I think it's an amazing resource. I feel like for me personally, what I would love to be able to pick while Zach is here to take full advantage is I do feel like with the Rural Counties Grant, that's one source of funding. I feel like if we have that expertise with the Department of Workforce Services as well, there may be opportunities for us to deepen that we're not necessarily aware of. So what are the additional workforce training opportunities that we can offer to local employers? What matching grants might be available that, you know, are development related? Even, for example, with Moab Community Childcare, what's available for those training programs? And that could be applied across any program. And I think when we talk about what we do, we talk about it in terms of we want more people to apply. But for me, practically speaking, what that means is what we really want are quality projects that are focused on economic development. And so we're making recommendations based on what we think is the most impactful project, and being able to have that expertise on the Department of Workforce Services side to be able to say, and also we can make that a stronger project, be more impactful, and cultivate an even better trained, powerful workforce by integrating this program that you guys may not know about, or this incentive for employers, or this tax break for hiring in rural communities. Because in talking to some of our businesses, they're not even necessarily aware that the governor's office offers a tax credit for hiring employees in our region. So it's little things like that that I love having your expertise, Zach, and I really am appreciative, Ben, that you were able to pull that off, and would love to be able to politely extract offering treats and goodies to you, Zach, for as long as you're available.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa. Ben Alter, one final comment about that, your reference to the bylaws. It occurs to me that I have never seen what the office delivers to GOEO, the final report. And I think we've all seen the materials that come to us, but I don't know that, I don't recall having seen what you all send to GOEO. So maybe we could circulate the most recent submission. Is that possible? Just so
Absolutely, I can send it. Yeah, I can send it right now so that folks can take a look during or after this meeting.
Just so we have an idea of how what happens here gets described and transmitted. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I apologize, Ashley, I missed acknowledging your presence before you jumped into the conversation, but welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I was behind the scheduling 8-ball today.
That's,
We heard you're busy, right?
she is? Okay. So I think we've wrapped up the conversation about the conversation. And Melissa, thank you for suggesting those other items that I think can be very valuable, and even just a brief conversation with or without treats with Zach will be helpful to us. Moving on to item 3, review of Trail to Tomorrow strategic plan. Ben, because we have Maurice and a student with us, and because Jasmine has been involved with conversations about Beacon, would you go ahead and summarize, and we'll let Maurice and Jasmine join in?
Absolutely, and I will say that the past few days involved more than I'd like to admit of finding Zach, and so my notes on this item are not as prepared as I'd like them to be. So I'd like to speak briefly about the meetings I've been having, and then in the next week or so, what I'd like to do is circulate some concrete notes that align a bit more with the strategic plan document that we actually have in front of us, because I think that's the value that I'm trying to provide. But in summary, we are working in our office to explore, as you all are as well, different ways of pursuing the goals in the strategic plan, the Trail to Tomorrow plan that you all have in front of you. Of course, a big part of that plan, and frankly, just a big part of any growing and working economy, is understanding and supporting your workforce pipeline. So with that in mind, I've had some really productive meetings with Beacon After School program, with the Grand Area Mentoring program, and just yesterday, Ben and I met with Kate Finley from the high school CTE program. Kate used to work in our office as a special events coordinator. She's now back in the schools. We miss her, but she's doing fantastic there. So I think that if you go to, especially, I can't speak for the high school, but if you go to Beacon and Grand Area Mentoring sites, you can absolutely find their annual reports. They're both Beacon kind of lives in an interesting gray area, but Beacon and Grand Area Mentoring both operate very much like a very up-to-speed nonprofit. They have wonderful numbers year over year that explain where their funding comes from, their impact, their support, their events, and all the different things that they touch within our community. And I just think the short answer is that I want us to be thinking, when we're thinking about workforce pipeline, about these programs that are already in place. Beacon After School and Grand Area Mentoring both have very tangible effects on taking either students that are at risk or students who just wouldn't otherwise have a productive outlet in their off time, and placing them in programs that connect them with really exciting new opportunities. I know that Grand Area Mentoring, they have been working with Jerry Pruitt in the Department of Workforce Services. And this is actually a program, maybe Zach can speak a tiny bit to what Jerry does. I have yet to reach out to Jerry himself, but my understanding is that Jerry is working with students to actually place them in internships, job shadowing programs, where they can get a real understanding of what they could be doing during or after high school, depending on the path they want to pursue. And some of these programs are even, paid internships and things that really get students involved. On the Beacon side, there's coverage all the way through high school. I can't remember from my meeting if Beacon had worked in the high school previously and then had stopped, but they've restarted either way. And that's really encouraging to see. But I want to come back and present this more within the frame of the strategic plan. But I wanted to tell you all, I've been having these meetings, and I think that working with these partners is going to be really important to ensuring graduate success. I say graduate, of course, whether it's a high school degree or a GED or something else, there's so many different paths of what success can look like. And getting students to understand what their opportunities are if they remain in this community, what they are if they come back to this community once they've gone somewhere else and gotten some sort of experience. And with that, of course, the housing affordability issue starts to trickle in, but convincing people that coming back to this community might be worthwhile for them. The last thing I'll say on that is that when I worked in this office previously, we were part of the high school's career week, and we set up a booth and did a really short 3-question survey with high school students who are about to graduate. I can't remember the exact wording, but one of them was along the lines of, do you want to come back here after you graduate, after you go to college or do a trade school or travel the world or whatever it is that you're going to do? Do you want to come back here? A lot of students really want to. We found that a majority want to, and that they feel they can't. Now, we weren't working with hard numbers, and we weren't asking for hard numbers in those surveys. So I think that we have both the real issue of housing and affordability, and also the perception that it's impossible to come back here. And so I think that when we talk about workforce pipeline, we have to think about it holistically and think about when students do something great here, how are we retaining them and how are we encouraging them to think about trying to come back? Because I think that mindset is a big part of it. It's not the only part. But I'm glad to take any questions, but I unfortunately didn't have the time I wanted to put together a better report, but this board can expect that in the next week or week and a half. We do have Maurice here, and I know that Jasmine has some familiarity with the Beacon program as well. And if you have any questions about Jerry Pruitt's work with the Grand Area Mentoring Program, Zach might be able to answer those questions as well.
Well, thanks for the context, Ben. Thank you for that. Let's jump to Maurice. And why don't you share with us your experiences with Beacon and ideas you have, and your student who may have some questions of us.
Okay.
It's all yours.
Sure. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share. And again, my name is Maurice, ACC AmeriCorps member, serving Beacon. And since working Beacon, serving with Beacon, just hearing the testimonials from parents about how they have been able to work, knowing that their child is in a safe environment, there's snacks, they're learning skills, they're being helped with homework so that they could finish with work. There's actually one parent that said she decided to move to Moab and work in Moab because there's a program here called Beacon. Seeing the staff of Beacon work hard, and they love it. It's not something that they're doing because, it's just a job. No, they love it because they're making a difference in the lives of the community. I have a student here who's a part of an entrepreneurship club who's in the high school, and today's Wednesday. We are changing around different days, but our new day is going to be on Thursday so that more students could come into the entrepreneurship club because the other days are not working out. And I spoke to the business teacher so that, we could work together because we're working to serve the students. So it's an opportunity to serve the students. And I'll actually right now let the student share his experience with Beacon.
At Beacon, it was just like I wanted to know more about what kind of stuff to do after high school, because I like it, like you going through school and you get grades, that's just a number to help you for college. But like these clubs, they help you more get ready for life. And it's been like given me something to look for, and actually get to learn how to do these stuff I might want to get into. So,
And would you tell us your name?
my name's Canton Renaldo.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for your insights. Sometime, if you have time, wander over to the counseling office and talk to the college advisor, who's also focused primarily on life after high school and how to find your way into the next step.
Well,
Let me go to Jasmine.
Okay,
Ashley,
sorry.
and then come back to you. Jasmine.
Yeah, I'll just add quickly, one thing that Maurice touched on, which I felt was very important and maybe very important to this board, is that Beacon fills kind of a gap for people who are working and their kids get out of school and they don't have anywhere to go, or until they're off of work. So it is basically, I mean, it's more than childcare, because it's learning opportunities and it's great for the students, but it's also great for those workers. And it's like basically free childcare for them until they're able to get off of work and pick up their kids. So it's serving so in so many ways. The program also, is grant funded, except for some portion, I believe, that comes through the school district. And it's unfortunate, but a lot of the grants that they receive have stipulations that they can't charge. So it puts them in a position where they're never really able to become self-efficient because they can't charge for their services. So there's always going to be an ask from somewhere in order to support what they do. So.
Thanks. Maurice, and then Zach, and then Ashley.
Concerned the part with the charge. I believe around a year ago, we decided, not to charge, because when we start charging, then there's going to be individuals now who cannot do that. And so when we made that decision, there was a specific grant that was helping our organization, but that grant was cut, which not to say for just Beacon, just after school programs in general, it's cut for us. So now we are actually, trying to utilize more fundraising because of that. But we don't charge, not because we can't, we charge because it just puts others in bind, like parents who can't afford it.
Thanks. Zach?
Yes, I'll try to keep it a really brief update with what Jerry's doing. But he's running, it's out of the WIOA program, federal funds. It's geared to youth. The federal definition of youth is age 14 to 24. So it's individuals within those category. And it's focusing on really two fundamental aspects. One, how do we keep or engage youth into completing high school and then pursuing post-secondary education, whether that's through credential stackment, short-term credentials, or a college degree. And then two, how do we prepare students for the workforce? And a fundamental thought through this process is how can we engage employers to let youth explore different career mindsets or career possibilities? And so there's two, Ben alluded to this, there's two aspects of that. One is a paid internship program. Our slang or acronym is EIO, Earn Income Opportunity. It is a paid internship. We reimburse the employer 100% of the wages. We also give the employer about a $150 monthly stipend for up to 3 months to help cover some of their costs, admin costs with having an intern at their company. But the goal is it can be as flexible as a 2-week up to 3 months, where we can kind of get a youth to say, hey, I'm really interested in this field as a career. We would reach out to several employers on the youth behalf to see if we can negotiate a paid internship and then let the youth get that kind of hands-on experience with that. The second one is called a OJT, or on-the-job training. That one is a little different. That one is designed for a permanent job placement after that is completed. It can go up to 6 months. We reimburse the employer up to 50% of the wages. And so kind of the best way to phrase it is this is like a paid probationary employee the first few months on the job. We're subsidizing their wages as the employer can train up the individual to meet their requirements. But the expectation is if they successfully complete that, for the lack of better words, a probationary time period, they would have a full-time employment afterwards. That one there, we could do a part, there's some rules and regs involved, but we could look at doing a part-time versus full-time if there's some reasons or justifications with that. There's obviously eligibility requirements for both the client or the youth and or the employer to participate in these programs. Fairly reasonable, but there are some guidelines that we have to look at, and we'll be happy to individually meet with someone or work with employers directly if they have questions on that. Going back to the educational aspect, some of the incentives we give the youth is if they're currently in high school, maybe it's someone who is not attending very often or has a poor attendance, we would try to re-engage them back into the high school. We can give cash incentives for grade improvements and through different curriculum. We can give a cash incentive for graduating high school or obtaining a high school GED. And then if we're looking at post-secondary education, we can actually cover up to a certain amount in tuition costs, books, etc., as well as connect to the youth to the FAFSA program through the Pell Grant through the federal government. So those are a few aspects of what Jerry's doing, targeting that population. Any questions over? I kind of give you just a really brief overview of that.
Thanks, Zach.
I kind of want
Ashley,
to follow up on that.
go ahead.
Okay, so I've been to a lot of meetings where we talk about our youth. It's like our youth, inspiring them through business, USU. There's like this circular thing going on. And so I feel like, and the chamber really wants to be involved, and there's, when the USU building got built, there were more ideas. So it's been this thing, and everyone's excited and wants to do it, and meetings about Beacon and meetings about internships. So like all these pieces are sort of out there floating about. And I just wonder if we couldn't, maybe we make a subcommittee with the chamber that looks at, like, we've talked a lot about events, getting everyone up to the USU campus and talking about things that they could be doing some kind of career fair kind of thing, or building on the career fair that the high school already does, that I know USU has already, some of those pieces have come together. But as far as the businesses participating, we haven't really connected those dots yet. So it just feels like we need to try to pull together, and maybe this group could be the lead on getting together. Like if we had a subgroup that said, okay, how about we do this once a year, or we build on the career event at the high school and we start to make it bigger to pull in some of these pieces or something like that. That feels like, because it just feels like we all talk about how great Beacon is, how great the internships are, how we could be inspiring our high school students more, but we haven't quite got to the point where we have a program that's happening that could do that. And there are some programs, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but maybe we could. And along those lines of subcommittees, back to the Trails to Tomorrow thing document. It also feels like we really need to look at that and figure out, okay, here are 5 action steps that we could do. And some of them might go to the tourism board, some could go through here. Maybe there's something in the chamber, but that you could say, this is a good idea. who should do it and see who might be interested. And it's really just moving the needle, trying to move the needle on those categories, because otherwise the danger of all those reports is you're on the shelf and
Yeah.
there's the dust.
You've just provided an entree to the next agenda item,
Yeah.
which is to
discussion
talk
of it.
about that.
Okay, good.
I do want to,
I wasn't sure if we hit it when Ben mentioned it and
No.
just went by, or
So-
we were coming back to that.
Melissa had a comment, and I'd like to add one. Melissa?
Oh, I was just going to enthusiastically second, third, and fourth Ashley's suggestion. I love that, and I'm super passionate, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, because when, the whole time, which is why, Zach, I would bring you treats. I would absolutely bring cookies. But I feel like one of the benefits and the advantages, among many, I'm sure, of having Zach here is to be able to provide all of that information about what Department of Workforce Services has to offer. And while he was explaining those programs, Ashley, that was exactly what I was thinking, is what an amazing evening training to have the business community, to be able to have the Beacon program and have Maurice be able to speak, or Zach also, and a representative, to kind of go through everyone, what all the opportunities are, what are the different programs, what are the different benefits, and then be able to leave there with action plans. Because, I am positive that if you were to talk to the chamber and then non-chamber businesses also, there are so many businesses that would love to be able to support and offer that as an opportunity. And if they knew that there was a financial cover the gap, because it's expensive to mentor, it's expensive to train, there's a cost associated with that. And for a lot of really busy business owners, there's an opportunity cost as well. I'm positive that they don't know that there are incentives to be able to offset that passion or drive that they might have to mentor our young people. So I
maybe-
second, third, and fourth you, Ashley.
Well, maybe it's like a workshop, I feel like sometimes the formal meetings, it's hard because we don't have enough time, but maybe there's a workshop where we invite all these pieces, Beacon, Workforce Services, USU, the high school, the chamber, and someone from our committee, and we go see if we can't figure out how we could do, maybe it's an annual event or something that connects the students, because I feel like we're all talking about the students, but the only people actually talking to the students are Beacon. And we could do more, but maybe, I don't know how we structure that.
Well, we've talked about this very thing in the spring and again earlier in the fall, and then we got wrapped into doing all the work for the grants.
Yeah.
But we've talked about bringing, the time is right for something that you're suggesting. I think it's actually a working session.
Yeah.
We have a new superintendent who's getting his feet on the ground. We have the two programs that we've discussed today. There are others that are available in the community. And I think we start with a subset of working group from this board or the entire board with those partners, and have a thorough conversation about how we deal with the pipeline from K to 16 or 18 and everything in between high school and the next step for people. And I want to speak as a thankful employer to the internship program that Zach spoke to. We've had a Grand County High School graduate, a year out of high school, very interested in paleontology, but with no formal sense of what he wants to do with it or go with it or what education is required. He did a summer internship with us, actually did some cataloging of our paleontological specimens and put together an exhibit that was on display at the public library. 3 months, Zach, the $150 that is given to sort of help the organization was helpful. We have a renewed agreement. So all we need is another student looking for that kind of opportunity. But as an employer and especially as a not-for-profit employer, that really worked for us. And I think to Ashley's point, the more we can make people aware of those services and those opportunities, the better connected businesses get connected with the students. So let's put that on the next, as we move to the next topic after.
Yeah, I
Ben
just
wants to add.
going to add is, discussion's great, but I think we also need to look back on some things that have happened, and so we can keep the traction. Let's not forget that Chris Marsh and the ED of Grand Area Mentors went in front of the commission and gave a presentation, and they had an ask. It was a financial ask, and they had a strategy to do a match, and that kind of got pushed as well. That would be next year, and so you know, maybe there's a way that this organization can support finding that funding, whether it's, you know, through the county, the city, or outside. But they had a number, I think their number was they wanted 25,000 from 2 different entities. So we should buckle down and follow up on that ask. In going back to the Trail to Tomorrow, I've got it in a nice binder, so if we do want to put it on a shelf, it's on in a good binder, and you can go on the shelf next to the other ones for many years. But as Ben can attest, this sits in our conference room, and when certain discussions come up, we pull it open and say, okay, how can you leverage what you're asking to do into this so that we can start building out the conversation? For instance, the meetings Ben was having with Grand County and Beacon, we said, all right, let's look at the infrastructure, the situational analysis. Let's tie it back to this, so at least you have a platform to argue from. One of the things that I really pushed on the people that did the strategic plan for us was they had a blanket statement that we want to, you know, improve school scores in the county. But they had no data. So like, well, don't tell us that without giving me a baseline. So we pushed on them pretty hard to go back. We have the beginnings of a dashboard. So this is a place we can start. It's in the addendum, it's in the back, but it shows where Grand County lines up with other counties in Utah. That, you know, we have a somewhat below average achievement scores. We have a higher amount of disadvantaged. So we could start there if you guys think that's a good place to start on this thread. Is we now have one of our alumni from our office, Kate Finley, who's the head of the CTE. So she's very much dialed in. And so she's working in the SCSC 2 days a week as the administrator, as well as running the continuous or the CTE program, which some things we've talked about, like incubator, the food incubator, maybe doing some with textiles. Well, we're now starting to make those contacts. She put me in touch with the textiles person today. We've got the hospitality group in there. So as we talk about making a thread, we now have a good advocate stakeholder that we can start there. So I just put that out there that we're not at the start line if we don't want to be. We're you know, around the first curve, and let's go take the traction and move to the next level.
Forrest.
Yeah.
That also falls in line with Mike McFalls, the new superintendent. What his goal is, one of his goals is the scores and making sure that those improve over the next, I don't, what was this year, the strategic plan? I don't remember, I think it might have been 2 years, 2 or 3 years. So, but that falls in line with him too. So that, I mean, we're already, everyone's talking about the same things like Ashley said.
Yeah, and one other thing I was gonna say, let's take our learnings. So for instance, we had a Moab childcare initiative that was teed up, but then it immediately went away because of a change at the top office in the school district. So because of position change, that had to come off the table. Well, let's learn from that last year, but let's don't let that be the problem next year. Let's build the asks in a way that if someone changes at the school system, that doesn't just automatically make the ask go away, that we can work around it. It would be, you know, what I would take as a learning from this past year. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
It's all good. It's all good stuff. Let's just take a 1 minute break, a stand-up break or a deep breath break. And let's then dig into Trail to Tomorrow.
Yay. I can't remember what it was. They said they were creating at the last meeting a process. And has that been created yet?
The tool,
Yeah.
yeah, we're working, it updated that at times, but yeah, I've been working with Jeremy Sage. And he even presented at the USU base camp, what they learned in our data. When we open up the discussion, I can talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want me to know how close it is.
Okay, we've had a quick break. Everybody's checking in on the communication device to which they are tethered and virtually tethered. And let's talk about the action plan and the recommendation that we addressed at last meeting about organizing working groups. And we had talked initially about identifying items within the 3 pathways and then prioritizing them. But we really didn't have much of a substantive conversation about the plan itself. And I know this is new to Randy, but I think I'd like to just summarize where we ended at the last meeting. And then let's move into a discussion about the plan in general. And then let's focus in on specifically the pathways and prioritize within those. Chris had already suggested some areas. The idea of this pipeline, this workforce pipeline certainly is one. And I want to give just a quick summary and then turn it over to the group. As we went through the discussion at the last meeting, Chris had said, in keeping with the restated bylaws, the amended bylaws, which emphasized the board's role in advising the commission, he suggested some working groups to focus on the recommendations. Jasmine pointed out that we ought to try to align it with the county's general plan, which makes sense because the commission heard the plan, but took no action on the plan. I'm going to assume that we consider that they've accepted it, even though they haven't acted on it. That may be out of my role, but I think we move forward with that understanding. And then Amy said, specifically look at the healthy economy of the plan. So that seems to make sense. And then Chris came back and said, one way to think about it now is to focus on the recommendations that align with the sort of general statement of establish and promote tourism, and to which we could add and workforce development. And then the final point that Colette made was connect with state and regional resources, including people like the organization that Deborah represents, the Unified Economic Council, and other resources around the state. So those are the conversations that we ended with last year or last month. It seems like a year, but it was only a month. So I would open the discussion up for general comments about what may have been discussed last month. And then let's move towards focusing our work.
Forrest, can I add one thing just to put this in perspective is USU held their base camp here in Moab 2 weeks ago, I believe, which was a big part of it. Deborah, you were there, weren't you, for some of it? I'm sorry, I thought you were, but it was a week long, it was very intense, and it was all the gateway communities, not all, but many gateway communities sharing best practices, learning from each other. Most are gateway communities within vicinity of a national park. So Jeremy Sage, who actually did a lot of the work for RRC, as well as Jake, who was another RRC member doing the data for this project, presented there. One thing that was interesting is a lot of the presentations, a lot of these themes are recurring. They were very similar data sets. So I would just point that out, that we are not in a vacuum solving a one-off problem. It almost seemed like, oh yeah, we can tell the same story. A lot of our different flavors. The community that was really interesting was Jackson Hole. It probably had the most similarities to Moab that.
Only more dollar signs.
I was gonna say, with the one caveat that
More zeros.
has the highest per capita population of billionaires. But the actual problems and the things that they were discussing, you could have switched names, and so that was a very interesting piece. Cities on the East Coast and the Midwest that are gateway communities, very much similar. So I think we not only do we have this, but we have the ability to go leverage off the others that are trying to solve for the same thing, and there's a bigger learning community. Is how I would put it.
Yeah. Well, when you said that part about develop our tourism economy and our workforce, I think those are two really different projects. And so we don't want to make it too, like, I think the way that we're going to succeed in this and the work we're doing with the students is to get some bite-sized pieces going, you know, and figure out, let's not be overwhelmed by the whole thing. Let's see if we can't do this piece or that piece. And I really think that, and the way we present this to the community and the words that we use, I think are really important. And I'm not sure I would even say, let's work on our tourism economy. I would say, let's work on our economy. And of that, we all know that visitors are a big part. So now what are we doing to make our visitor economy better than Jackson Hole's? We want to be at the next base camp. We want to be the example that people are turning to say, wow, they figured out this piece and they figured out that piece and they did a good job on this. And so it's really about like dividing up the elephant into bite-sized pieces and seeing which pieces we want to work on. And so those pieces, one of them is definitely how we advertise and what our plans are for that, like how we're spending our advertising money and is it going to be effective? And I think that is a super important driver, because one of the things that every tourism economy suffers from this is that there is this, I don't think Jackson's really winning on this either, but I haven't looked that hard at them lately, but that, you know, you've got this marketing department going crazy, spending money, and then you've got the product development department, the land managers, and the two things do not communicate. And so we have this opportunity to be one of the leading communities that's doing a much more deliberative effort to say, this is what we're selling, these experiences, and now we're going to market them in a way that is going to drive people to those. But it's that whole idea of invite them, inspire them, and educate them with that same messaging, so that you're not saying, come to Moab, come to Moab. Okay, once you get here, recreate responsibly. It's like integrating that. So that's like a whole project right there, like connecting, working on what is our product and what is our marketing strategy for those products. So that's one whole piece. And then separate from that is workforce development and this education thing. And then even separate from that is housing, which I've been hearing there's a lot of rooms for rent lately. I don't know what that means.
One thing to your point, Bill, is good about being at USU is the NPS was there in the state, and because it was our data guys presenting the project they did here, I've been able to send this to a lot of our local public lands people. So
Sure.
it's at least it's being reviewed at that level. The other thing that is interesting, just as a precursor is Jackson Hole. That they are now realizing that they're at the tipping point, like they've done their map overlays where you have different public lands. Where the overlaps are in the management. But they have what they've mapped out as the rings of fire and where all the hits are coming, and also the fact that they're getting so high priced in the market that the majority of their visitors are day visitors now. They're day trippers that are staying 2 hours away, because 2 hours away in Idaho is the ability to get to either Grand Teton or the other park. What's the other park? Just to
Yellowstone.
Yellowstone, yeah. Yeah, how did I forget? But basically what it says is, okay, these gateway communities are struggling with something, but there's a place in Idaho that's getting all the benefit right now.
Sure, and that.
And we know that's happening in Green River right now.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's happening in a lot of places. That's a huge problem.
Over prices.
Well, no, the idea that you aren't connecting the resource to where the money comes in. I mean, look at all the people buying groceries in Price and going out to the Swell. Like I can give you example in every single western state, 10 of where the money and the impact are in different counties. So, but I think, yeah, I mean, I think, I think really the thing that we could do that would be the smartest is to go back through the plan and divide it up into smaller categories. Like what are these, the different ways? Because the land managers having the data is good, but there's actually a conversation that we have to have right now. The BLM is working, and I haven't had a chance to do this yet, but I'm meeting to for a while. But the BLM is working on signing 50 miles of hiking trails.
The BLM,
Our BLM office has a project where they're gonna sign 50 miles of hiking trails. Now, what we wanna do as the business community and as economic development is take a quick peek at those and see like, where are people gonna drive to? Where are the parking areas? Where are those hiking trails? And are they all beginner? Are they all advanced? Is it a good mix? Is there any other way that we could have input on which trails they've chosen and how they're planning to do that? Because that's our product. And so if we work with them and say, oh, great news, we have 5 new beginner hiking trails in Moab that we can now promote, and invite people to do. A big part of what we need to do is get these hikers / sightseers, but mostly we're talking about hikers right now, to know that there's more than arches to hike in Moab. So this is like, if we can get this piece right, all of a sudden you've got people who were planning to spend only one night and thought the only place to go hiking was Arches. Now they're excited about name a trail. Like it's gotta have a good name. And right now none are coming to mind. So one of the things we could help the BLM with is before you print all the signs for some name that Cottonwood, or we don't have a lot of those, but that's plagues me all over the place. But but whatever the names of the trails are, maybe we can make them better and more informative and more inspiring. And then, so now what I'm really talking about is connecting the dots between this $8 million or whatever we're going to spend on TRT and the product. And so who are we trying to get to do that? And are we giving them enough information?
Yeah.
So it's a big thing, but I feel like that's the next step, is to go through and say how many different, so that's under the title of make your tourism economy work better.
Right.
And here's a piece that we can do. And we need like 20 other things like that. And they're out there. We just need to identify them.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with all of that. And I think that one of the ways to do that would be, I mean, I guess, and also tying us back to something Forrest said, let's sort of operate on the assumption that the commission is on board with this. I actually don't think we should quite operate on that assumption. I think what we should do is help bring them on board with this.
Right.
And what I mean by that in particular is I think that, I mean, that conversation last time about the general plan, and we pulled it up and there's only like 2 pages on the economy in there. It's a pretty small thing. I mean, I think that like helping as a group draft a potential revision to the general plan, economic section that ties to Trail to Tomorrow and builds out something meaningful, something actionable
That's a great
from it
Mhm.
that we then put in front of the commission to get official buy-in would be a really strong way to have the plan essentially be adopted in a meaningful way. And also to tie it in, I mean, because I mean, let's be honest, it's not a plan. It's like a policy report with lots of great numbers and
Right,
research
yeah.
behind it, but like it needs the plan added to it, like for action, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And let's do that, you know? So let's, I mean, I don't know, like, it could be under the rubric of their 3 headings. Or we can, I mean, I don't know that part matters too much, but I think what we could do would be put together a process to get us from here to that proposal to the commission. And then from there, obviously, there's like, everything has to get done after that, but like, then you have official imprimatur on it, then you can add budget to it where it's needed later on and things like that down the road too.
So you're saying do take the general plan and tie it to the trails tomorrow, see how we can tie it. And then through that, create an action plan,
Yeah,
or at least the skeleton of an action plan that we're going to take this and this, and we're gonna
Yeah.
work on trails, we're gonna work on weddings, we're gonna work on whatever, you know, because they brought up a lot of ideas that were really good.
Yeah.
And then present that.
yeah,
I think
a
that's-
redraft of the economic portion of the general
Right.
plan. To suggest to the commission, and then obviously commission can debate and change and edit and hopefully adopt.
I think that's super important because words like tourism are just triggers and everyone's gonna react to that in a different way. But if you show them the actual building blocks of what we're trying to do and why it will be of value, and it's not, we need to get beyond the shred on or close the gate continuum, because that's where we're stuck.
We need to make it right now, I think why there is that comes up with a lot of people when you talk about improving tourism. Is they think it's only a small sector of town that experience the benefits of tourism. The hotel owners, the trails. And so we need to show that, to bring it up and find ways to enhance how other areas of our economy can improve. So that the economy becomes more robust and wider, not so.
More resilient.
Well,
Yeah.
it's showing how that if we do a better job at tourism, it will make everyone in Green County's life better. It's connecting those things. And I think showing how this visitor economy, I mean, we wouldn't have the doctors, we wouldn't have the hospital without the visitor. Like, there's a few pieces of it that, so there's a lot of people who can say, well, I don't work directly in the visitor economy, but you wouldn't be here without it. Like, you wouldn't, like, connecting those dots a little bit more.
If it didn't work for the mind, it's still the mind, yeah.
Yeah, and this is something that UTIA and these other entities are starting to deal with on a much bigger level. They're starting to do things like tourism works, tourism toolkits to communicate the benefits to a local economy of what the high visitor is bringing. The other thing what I really like about what Chris was saying is when this was presented to the commission, it was almost like you said, we just got this big policy statement with a lot of action somewhere in there. What's our next step? And they even mentioned in that meeting, you know, do we have a workshop or do we start assigning people? But I think what might be very helpful is exactly what you're saying, is prioritize and pick out the things that are actually actionable, and then we can take it to the commission to say, hey, you know, here's an agenda item to support going forward with this, or an initiative. So I'm
That's a
sorry.
great idea.
Ben Alter's arm is gonna get tired. He's had his hand up for a while and I know he's got something to contribute.
Thanks. Enjoying the conversation that's going on. Originally, I had raised my hand because I wanted to ask if you wanted me to share any aspects of the plan on the screen so that I could operate that and you wouldn't have to worry about it. So let me know if you need that and I can share that. And yeah, I also just want to advocate for thinking about the process side of things. This needs inclusion in the general plan. We're working with Amy to make sure that happens. But I think that's a big first step. We do have a policy outline document in front of us. I can't remember how Chris put it, but it's very good. And we need to extract goals and work on it. That's the way I see it, and that's certainly direction that staff would like. And I would also just say that I think that conversations around this community's tourism product and how we advertise and promote and whatnot are very important and in a lot of ways relevant, with the caveats that, one, there's a lot in here that doesn't have to do with that I think is important, or has less to do with that I think needs attention. And also this board doesn't have oversight over a lot of those things. So if we intend, the board intends to insert themselves in that conversation, which I think could be a very relevant opportunity, there needs to be good, there needs to be goals, there needs to be good work around that. It's not something we can just jump into. There are a lot of stakeholders there, and we're sort of on the bottom of the list, process-wise. I just want to keep those, not to be the fingernail in the salad, but to just keep those lanes up.
Better a fingernail than a toad. Thank you, Ben, and thanks for the thanks for the offer to hold it up on screen. Melissa, you had your hand up.
You're
There you go.
muted.
You're muted.
You're muted, Melissa.
Thanks. I love what Ben just said. And I feel like it's the perfect bookend to Chris, what you were suggesting, which I absolutely love. And second, third, and fourth also. I kind of feel like for me, what the beginning of the thread is, and then following that all the way through, is what is appropriate, what is the role of the board. And Ben, you're absolutely right. It's around that rural counties grant. And I feel like everything that Chris is suggesting and what he's recommending and what we could potentially bring to the county is the best piece possible for us to get those quality projects that we're looking for. So what are we looking for in a quality project, and how does that align with the county plan, and what elements of Trail to Tomorrow get weaved into that, culminating all the way through to the very end, which would be, in my mind, ideally, being able to present to the community and invite them in and explain to them what is the rural grant process, what projects are meaningful projects within the context of the plan, and then allow them to ask questions so that we can start those conversations about quality projects and what types of projects would be appropriate through that ongoing engagement with the community. I think the likelihood that we get more of those projects and that they are higher quality, meaning more in alignment with whatever the plan is or whatever we decide that the strategic objectives are. I would kind of almost like to see that go all the way through from the beginning of Chris's suggestion to say, let's make sure that we have buy-in from the county, or this is what the county commission wants to do in terms of what types of projects that we're looking for. And then how do we make that easier by refining that and making it actionable and making a plan, and then being able to present to the nonprofit and the business communities. This is what we're trying to accomplish. Be thinking about what projects you think might be in alignment with that and would best accomplish that. I actually think that we would be cultivating and farming really great projects for us to be able to choose from and support.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to do it all.
We can't. We can't. Mary, I cut you off when I responded to Ben. You were going to add something.
I think I was going to say, right now I'm feeling like that it's still very fluid. I guess I don't say, this is like, between now and the next meeting, what do we have to have done?
Right.
That's where I'm at. Do we need a small group that's going to get together and say, okay, we're going to take the general plan.
We're gonna take the report and we're gonna dice it up into projects.
Okay,
We're gonna assign other nonprofits and other entities to doing some of them, or think about who it could be. And then we're gonna back into attaching it to the general plan. And so
first we're gonna take Trails to Tomorrow, is that what you're saying?
yeah, I mean, I
And
think we
break
have
it
to
up.
go through and break it down into doable pieces with some idea of who might do which piece. And just, that's a sort of a brainstorming thing. And then if we go back into the general plan and look at explaining, instead of just saying, do tourism better or promote tourism or something really vague like that, that the commission's gonna be kind of like, well, it will be grow our economy by doing these things. So if we break out the pieces and then sort of categorize them into groups that show how we're inspiring our youth to stay in Moab, we're supporting entrepreneurships in Moab, we're doing a better job of managing visitors, we're getting more money out of the visitors, there's all these pieces that we can say we're doing that will fill out the point that the Grand County plan doesn't talk enough about how our economy works. And then, is that helping? Am I getting there?
Well, it is, but I guess I'm still, I guess, I don't know.
I like your
Teachers
idea,
and me,
Mary.
I want,
We want the specifics.
I think we could stay in this realm of good ideas but we need to break it into, before our next meeting, we want a working group, a few of us, to get together and say, maybe just start the process of breaking up the trails tomorrow to present at next month's meeting.
Yeah.
So that we're on track to get it to the commission in a timely.
I agree, Mary. I think if we, whoever volunteers, whoever would like to come to an interim, not an official meeting of this board, but just a meeting to work on the general plan, a draft.
Now, are we talking general plan now, or are we?
Well, I'm sort of, I want to get into the weeds of the building blocks so that what we say in the general plan, we're actually doing.
So
I just want to make sure they're connected.
I mean, I think
But yes,
at that meeting, we would have in front of us and probably come to it, hopefully with having done a little more homework, whoever participates in that meeting too, so we have some things to put on the table, but have in front of us the Trail to Tomorrow documents and the general plan section on the economy. And then we start drafting a proposal, for a revision to that document that incorporates Trail to Tomorrow into it. And then, we work on that for a couple hours, maybe do some more homework, some emails back and forth, whatever, so that at the next meeting, we have a draft that we can all look at, have a discussion about, and then, whatever, then we can decide if we think that group went on totally the wrong path, we can pull it all back, or we can just finalize and have something ready for the commission.
Yeah. Okay. Of course you can, but let me get to Cassie first.
I was just gonna suggest if we do something like this, and if we're talking TRT funds, that we get the TCAP board involved too, because they have a huge voice in that. So it may be reaching out to the TCAP board and see if one or two of them would be able to join. I mean, I am on that board, so, but I just feel like if the TCAP board and this board are working together and they've got similar goals and they're both presenting those to the commission, that's gonna be a much easier ride than the two boards fighting against each other.
yeah, we absolutely.
Ellie?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say in this action plan section of Trail to Tomorrow and Pathway 3 especially, these are all little action items that we are definitely taking into account when we're thinking about messaging strategy around social media and our website. So things like seek visitors who care about natural resources, target international markets, serve visitors year round. Those are all things that we are definitely doing and planning to do through social media accounts too. And so just as you're thinking about what tasks to split up,
Sure.
if you want to take something off your docket or something like that.
Sure, but we want to make sure we're connecting what you're saying, like that idea, get international travelers.
Right.
Okay, you can spend a boatload of money broadcasting to Europe, come to Moab. Or you can say, let's go fund people who for example, I was thinking about who did the Hope route, which is hut to hut, right? Do we have anything like that? Or let's get just a little bit more granular so that instead of having to spend all this money searching through all those people in Europe for who wants to come to Moab, we are able to, and because we've talked to the land managers and we have an idea of what, we know what experiences we're selling here, we could inform your social media campaign to make it more direct.
Yeah.
That's the kind of dot connecting that I've seen to be really, really effective.
Yeah.
And so the question is, who is going to do what part of this, and But yeah, we have to invite those guys for sure. And I think this casual working session, if we sort of spread the word, and it's not like we're gonna decide anything, no one's being left out. It's not, it's just a kind of a starting to create a draft that then we would shop to all the groups, like what does the chamber think of it? What is the travel council, whatever we call them, I cannot remember. TCAP, okay, TCAP, what did they think? And then, you know, like really do this kind of, anyone that wants to learn about this thing and get a little better, I think it's brilliant to tie it to the general plan. I think that's a great way to bring it to the council in a way that's useful, commission, that it's useful but that is the whole point, is tying your work to really making a difference in economic development and people seeing that we did the work, we found the product, we told people about it, people came, we got more money, our economy did better.
Yeah.
So.
Mary, you were gonna say something? Somebody will capture it. So
It'll come out of the ether.
But I appreciate that you're saying, let's.
Yeah, cause I go to too many of these meetings and that's my frustration with all of them. Is everybody we can have an hour or 2 hour meeting and we discuss all this. But then we rediscuss it at the next meeting. And so having some type of, we're moving in this direction and, you know, just cut, you know. So we can see some progress.
So how about a 90-minute meeting beginning now? We've just almost finished 90 minutes. So I feel as though we've all been on whatever the mechanical marriage of a Ferris wheel and a merry-go-round, that our conversations have been like that. And so what I'm suggesting is that we pick a date 2 weeks out and schedule a work session. And any member of the board, of this board who wants to attend, and any member of the TCAP board who wants to attend is welcome, with some clear expectations set in advance.
And I think we should say this is an introductory meeting, we should call it that.
Yeah.
And so that people, and because hopefully, we might even get subgroups of the subgroup working on some stuff. And so, but can I throw out the date, Friday, the 8th? But I'm confused about the 90 minutes right now. Are we?
We started at 3, we're almost at 4:30. And what I'm
Oh.
suggesting is that this be our action for today.
Got it.
One thing I might suggest too is if we're gonna do this, we could enlist a facilitator. That might be
Good
a
idea.
very good idea with,
Absolutely.
otherwise we're gonna get in a lot of.
We're gonna
things.
circulate.
Yeah. So if someone has a good suggestion of a facilitator, that would be great.
And I've got a gavel we can use.
I think Forrest would be a great one. I'm just.
Forrest
saying.
No.
He's a good chair, but I think our first meeting, we should wing it, because I don't want to spend money hiring someone just yet.
No, I'm
But
just
just
saying, but
saying.
we can get a volunteer facilitator, just someone to keep us on
Ah.
track.
Hmm.
Not a planner, just someone to facilitate the
Yeah.
meeting, so is efficient.
There are people like that in the community that we
What?
We,
Ben Alter.
Ben?
well, I mean, the document,
What do you think, Ben?
that would be great. The document itself is gonna force us to go through. It's
Well,
gonna-
I wonder, I'm really
Thumbs up from
concerned about.
Yeah.
Making sure that the trail to tomorrow, there's so many good ideas. I want that tool. I want that up and, you know, I don't know where it's at.
Would
Yeah.
the 8th work?
Well, it works for me, but I don't need to be there.
But
It's not good for you? Great. Okay, give me another, it's the right.
It's only a weekend.
I'm probably gonna be out of town the following week, sadly. What about the 5th? The 5th, that's election. What
Well, we
about
can't do that
the morning
next
of the
week.
7th? This is
Let's-
not the only meeting.
Let's give us a little bit more time. I think
Who can do it? Ben, can you do a doodle poll,
a doodle poll.
or whatever they're called? For something like this?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
One thing I'll ask
I
Ben
can
is,
send one out after this meeting. Can I ask the range of dates that we're looking at, just the next 2 weeks or?
I think we should try for let's just try for right now, because our next meeting, because of Thanksgiving, is the 20th of November. So if we push this far enough out, we're not gonna have done anything. I mean, it's gonna be too close. And really, this is just an introductory meeting. It doesn't have to be the be all to end all meeting. It's just a start. If we can do an outline, that's gonna tell us who we need to invite to the next meeting, like, oh, we want.
I think there's a question of kind of like size, like how big do we want this to be? I mean, because to get like to some of the level of detail that some of the ideas that you were putting out there a few minutes ago might be like, we might realize that's too far down for a general plan.
Sure.
So there's a question of like, I mean, do we, if we're staying at the like 2 to 3 pages, like we might actually be able to knock out like some substantial progress at
Sure.
one meeting and a couple emails.
If the goal is just.
But if we
yeah.
decide that we need to get deeper than that, or perhaps there's like 2 products that come out of this
Yeah.
instead of just one,
Definitely.
right?
Definitely.
Then we might need subgroups and subgroups or additional
Right.
meetings and things
Right.
like that. So I think it'll be, I mean, we're gonna have to get together, see how many people show up and, you know, really start to make a decision about like, what is this revision? What do we think it needs to look like?
Sure.
Before we can
Well,
really
if
say.
we're,
oh,
if we're like inviting all of our board too, we might end up needing to post this meeting. So
Well, let's have a subgroup. Let's not invite, I mean, anyone can turn up, but
you probably
there's
need to keep it to less than a quorum.
yes, definitely. And there is a model for this that we did 150 years ago when we were working on a public lands bill for Grand County. And it was a commission, remember the Flat Earth Society, the big flat group? Joking, all the society, but those meetings were open to people. We had one and then we started like, there's a workshop kind of casual meeting thing where nothing is being decided, but things are being drafted for other bodies that are more official to review. Yeah. And so I just want to get going, but if we can't, I can just come, I'm gonna be away the week of the 12th for sure. The week of the 11th. So I was trying to squeeze in like a couple hours next week to get started.
Well, a couple,
The 7th is definitely an option for me.
What if we did like 9 to noon on the 7th?
The 7th, that's Thursday.
Yeah, is that crazy?
That's next Thursday.
You don't have to be there the whole time. I mean, I think. it
I
could
just
be-
want to, I think this is a good idea, and I think the two of you have a clearer vision than I even have. I'm struggling with seeing where we're going
Well,
forward. I don't know if anybody else is,
I'll-
but
I'll go a step further than Mary. Can I have the vision reiterated? It seems like I'm trying to understand what the goal of this meeting is and the scope of participants.
So goal is to move forward on a draft proposal to the commission for a revision of the economic section of the general plan that incorporates the findings of the Trail to Tomorrow document.
now see, to
Very
me,
well
that fits right now, if that's what we're doing.
Yes,
That fits solely in what this group's job is.
Right.
If we keep the word transient room tax and just tourism focus, and we're working on the economic section of the general plan, then I think just keeping at this point, keeping the group, like 3 people from this group that get together and start to say, we want.
I think that's fine.
Yeah.
So if
and
we
then-
make it
then-
economic development, just what you just said about economic development, and if we give a few examples if we need to, we don't have to do all the work, but like just get it a little more clear of what we're trying, so that we aren't so high, 30,000 feet, we can at least get
Yeah,
a
we need to
little
bring it
lower
down.
so that it,
Get
but
some oxygen.
but we can, but if we do it, if we frame it like that, then we don't have to invite a bunch of other groups. This is just a subgroup from our group. And the idea is to get started and to do what you just said and say, well, and kind of look a little bit into the future, like how do we execute on this
Yes.
thing that we're writing?
And then,
Very
I mean,
different.
if we decide in 1 month after we've reconvened and we have something in front of us, that it needs to be shared with
That we
other
need to bring
boards,
in
with
other
other
groups.
organizations, whatever. I mean, we can make those decisions then.
Yeah,
But maybe we
we-
should get
yeah,
something on
we
paper to
need-
start.
Agreed, agreed.
We need the skeleton where people can see it and see what we're attempting to do.
Yeah.
Right now, I think it's too vague, and I
agree.
even for myself, that's in this conversation, is having a hard time.
You're totally right, Mary. So
Yeah,
that, let's
so
back
I
up and
could
just
do
make it
this-
be a
I could do the
subgroup of ours.
14th. Did you
Okay.
say the 14th?
No, we said the seventh.
The 7th?
Well,
Oh,
one
I
thing,
said the
one
7th.
thing to everyone, just to keep in mind, if it helps you with the scoping is, remember when this was commissioned, it was a 5-year strategic plan, so you don't have to get it all done in the first quarter.
Oh, what a relief.
I could,
But I mean, you can build out, I mean, what I'm saying
The
is that
seventh
some of
looks-
these initiatives are 4 years out.
The 7th looks
Oh,
good
yeah,
to me.
there's
I would
gonna
like, if we did it, I would like to do like a, because I have company in town, but they could hang out.
Okay.
And if we
At
did it
the
early in the
museum?
morning.
At the museum, yeah.
So, yeah, send them to the museum.
They say, I don't.
Well, is 9 early enough? We can do earlier if you want.
9?
I can do anytime.
What if we do 8 AM and we do it at my office?
That's the night after a commission meeting and. I don't
Okay,
know.
9 AM.
Yeah, they sometimes.
Back to
10
9 a.m.
o'clock, as you know.
Yes,
9 a.m.
9 AM
I don't
and
check
my
it.
office and,
Sure.
I'll provide snacks.
Sounds great.
And so the 3 of us are gonna be there and if anyone else wants to come.
Who else? I would like, Ben's gonna be there. Oh, good. Oh, I really.
I need to read the plan.
Ben Alter will be there, I will not.
That'd be awesome. Ben, does that work for you? The
Can I come?
7th?
We're talking about
Yes, yes.
9 a.m.
Please come. I
on
was
the
just about to
7th.
recruit you.
Yes, I
Yes.
am on.
9 AM on the 7th at Western Spirit.
Yep.
It's a workshop. Breakout group.
Yep, that
Can
works
I
for me.
come for the snacks?
Definitely. Yes, there'll be good.
And, yes, that's 9 a.m. at the Western Spirit, 7 o'clock.
7th,
7, I mean, 7th at 9.
yes.
And our goal is to, any, people that come have really looked through the Trail to Tomorrow. I've looked through it, I need to look through it again, it's pretty dense. And, then
Thinking
you
about
have,
how do we connect it to the general plan in terms of economic development? How do we use this to connect
Right.
to economic
We
development?
pulled that up before. We can send that. If we get an email going with these people involved in this meeting, or if we set up just an invitation or something that goes out to everybody, we can pull up that. It's 2 pages. It's really not big from the general plan. So I think we can share that also
Yeah,
ahead of
so
time.
it's
So
looking
everybody
at that
reads
short
that.
document
comes
and this
in.
long document and starting to figure out what are the steps that we need to do to connect these two. So because as you said, as you guys both said, it's really important that the commission is not asked to vote on this thing in a vacuum.
Right.
It needs to have context, and that's why this is such a good idea to say this is part of the economic development strategy in the general plan, is to use what we've learned from this. Okay, can you be there, Malie? Yay, okay.
okay, it sounds like we have a way forward. And the people who come with your homework done.
Yeah, come prepared.
Can I just throw this out in regards to public meetings act with Mayor, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name now. She kind of alluded to this, but if you have at least 3 of your voting members present, even in this committee, that's considered a public meeting, so you have to follow those rules to post it.
No,
You're not a voting member.
Yes.
I'm not a voting member.
So it would be only 2.
Okay, perfect. I'm still not sure who's all the voting members, but I'm just throwing that out as for consideration.
Thank you, Zach. I had the same comment, and if I would say just from a personal county comfort level, even if we don't have those 3 voting members, if we add any more members than we're looking at, I think we should be considering a public notice and holding it at our office, which we're happy to do. Ashley, I love the invite to your office, and I think that sounds fine right now, but if we broaden the group anymore, I think that would be just best practice. Right now, this sounds fine as long as we're meeting that threshold or not meeting that threshold that Zach just referred to.
There's 7 voting members, correct, in this?
Maybe we should just do it. Is that a big
That's
deal
fine.
to just do
Well,
that?
do we have time to do public notice?
Oh, yeah.
between now and the se- Okay, so fine, public notice.
Yeah, of
but I
course.
thought we were really low on conference rooms around here.
Not as
Well,
much.
there's the just the small conference room at your guys' office.
Yeah.
Okay,
We-
fine.
Can we use that?
Great, perfect. So then all three of us can
I
be
think
there
that's great.
and Mary
Then we don't have to
and
worry
Ben,
about it.
and we don't have to worry about anyone freaking out. And all of us, four of us, then, four of
Yeah,
us.
we have to go have snacks, we have to go have snacks.
Free snacks.
I insist on snacks. I will bring
Okay,
snacks.
So I'm trying to make an hour, I was.
So, so am I understanding that this is now a special meeting?
No, I think it's still a workshop,
Just a
right? Or I
workshop.
don't know, Ben, what do you wanna call it? If you're issuing the
It's a
public notice.
workshop. Oh, notice the workshop, you notice workshops.
Okay.
And the people that aren't as interested in going to workshops either. It won't draw the crowd.
Like this meeting does.
I will not be there.
So to be clear, this is we're going to have it announced publicly. It's going to be announced as a workshop. And we have a quorum limitation or not?
No, because there's
It's an
public
announcement.
notice.
It's public
Okay,
notice, we don't have
perfect.
to worry.
Perfect.
Yeah, because, but we won't make any decisions. We
No,
can't
no,
make any decisions.
There won't be any action items, it will be a workshop where we.
Zach, thank you for joining us and contributing to this conversation and our understanding of the world. And appreciate any further time you can provide. As you can tell, this is a high energy group. And probably more ideas than we can handle, but that's what keeps us going to the next meeting. And Maurice, thank you for joining us. And thank your student. I hope this was insightful, if not informative.
Now, are we gonna discuss this here?
And we do have two items that are basically housekeeping items. I believe, as Ashley said, we do have on the calendar board meeting on the 20th of November. And I suggest we decide about this possible December meeting at the November meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And at the November meeting, we can address and set the board meeting schedule for 2025. And I know that Ben has done a lot of work on board membership affiliations and terms, so we can look at those at the next meeting as well.
Yeah, I actually have on my calendar two, a meeting on the 20th and the 27th, but since the 27th is the day before Thanksgiving, I'm assuming we're not having that one and we are having the one on the.
Yeah, we
20th.
changed it.
Okay.
That's
Correct.
right.
We changed that.
Um, how many board vacancies are we looking at for next year?
Well, I think Ben will be able to clarify that for us at the next meeting. There, when Ben was requested to update our board roster for GOEO. He did that, but then found that there are some discrepancies in our records during that fluid period of time with the transition from when we had a vacancy in the director.
Okay.
So,
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay,
okay,
cause it'd be nice, cause probably some board members' times are up, and if they're not
Right.
interested in reapplying, we
we
need to
need to
start.
advertise, yeah, recruit, yeah.
Cause advertising really helps the bit.
Yeah.
It's word of mouth that gets people.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
Yes, one thing is, we had talked earlier about some of us getting together and just modeling or talking about a food incubator. And we'd also talked about maybe something in the textile side and Melissa, and I just didn't want to be guilty of like, oh, that went away, we don't have to deal with it, so if there's still some interest in doing that, I'm definitely, I want to keep to my word that I'm glad to do it, so.
I'm interested. I also think that maybe the way forward is like getting strategic plan stuff
Perfect.
lined out first and then beginning of next year.
I just didn't want to push it under the.
But I think it's smart because I mean, I think what we're talking about is getting ourselves lined up for the grant cycle for next year and being
Okay.
really proactive and
And we
ahead of
had
the
it,
curve.
Okay.
rather than waiting until, you know, the spring or summer.
And the other thing about this is that idea of nurturing food entrepreneurs is part of an economic development strategy that depends on visitors.
Did anybody?
That's great.
And so it is part of like, and I think that's one of the things that if we do this work and create a 3-page document that mentions something like that, at least mentions it, then what we're doing is we're showing people this is not just about outfitters and guides and hotels and restaurants. It's not just this core tourism people that we're trying to support. It's actually the entrepreneurship that goes deeper and could really broaden our, you know, have more people making money from visitors in a good, sustainable way. That's, that kind of addresses the knee-jerk anti-tourism sometimes reaction.
Just a quick aside, I don't know how many people saw the New York Times article about Moab.
Yeah.
It was great.
36 hours.
Wow, I just went, whoa, you guys must have worked hard on this. Were you behind?
Say yes, no matter what.
I would, but I can't take any credit.
Oh, I don't know who did it, but I mean, it was. Did you read it?
Yeah, it was Amanda Height. She's a local science journalist.
She's a what?
She's a science journalist in town, but she wrote it just as like a freelance project.
Oh, really?
Oh, it is really good. The way it goes through the different restaurants and towns and different, it wasn't just, oh, let's go to Arches and let's row the river. Let's take it.
I think it's in the print edition in a few days.
Yeah.
Wow.
The reason it wasn't us, Mary, is we wouldn't have only done 36 hours.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, don't look at it. We want to
80 hours.
hear longer. Yeah, that's the only thing I don't
The
like
dance
about
and
it
music.
already.
You pitched
There
the
you
2
go.
weeks version, which is why
But
I didn't pick up the
it was,
article.
I was so shocked when I was going through my New York Times, I go,
Yeah, yeah.
did you see it? I
Yeah, I
went,
did.
"Oh, I gotta read that. Then I sent it to you,
Oh, yeah.
Alex, and a bunch of people saying, wow, this is pretty nice advertising without us paying.
Yeah, I get their travel email. I think it came out Saturday morning in the weekly travel email, New York Times.
Cool, yeah.
Like, wow, where they popped.
It was.
It's already on top.
And the Salt Lake Tribune is gonna have a big article on uranium in today's or tomorrow's edition. So there's another look at Moab.
And if you didn't read Doug Murdoch's editorial last week, you should read it. I read it out loud to my husband and we laughed. I was tearing up.
Last
It's
week.
really funny.
Okay.
And it's funny.
Yeah.
It's it's editorial.
Ben Alter gets the last word.
I have a few things. Sorry, I'll be quick. First, sound on mind has not been perfect, so I want to confirm that we have moved our regular meeting to November 20th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I will change the calendar invite to reflect that shortly. Second thing, I raised earlier in the meeting the issue of our bylaws. I would love for us to have this done by the end of the year because it needs to go before the commission, and between the bylaws discrepancy and the open positions, that'll place us well for January to recruit. However, I think we have a great ambitious plan for tackling Trail to Tomorrow in our future meetings. So if it's all right with the board, I would love to start the bylaws discussion because it is such a small thing over Google, and we can propose some changes and possibly just solve it over email. That way, at our next meeting, we can simply approve the language changes because they will be very small. Does anyone have any issue with going through that process?
Doing a Google Doc?
Or just via email?
Yeah, just doing
Good
some track
job.
changes.
Ben will take care of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Great idea.
And the last thing is that on the subject of Chris talking about teeing up for future funding cycles, I was wondering if Deborah, I don't know if she's still in the room, I think she is, but I was wondering if she could speak at all to if her office can meaningfully connect us with the Governor's Unified Economic Council, because we were told that this is another plan. My very general understanding is that this would be similar to a general plan, but at the state level, whereas if we take our plan, work with the governor's plan and find a way that it aligns and is incorporated, there could be some additional funding for us to uncover for other projects. So I was wondering, Deborah, are you able to make that connection with us? Because I think it'd be great for a future meeting item to talk to them.
Yes,
Yeah,
I will work with Colette on that because I'm not fully aware of how that would look. So I will work with Colette and get that done, yes.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Brendan.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you all. That's all I've got.
We're adjourned.
hey.
As far as-
Okay, get this,
Yeah.
the New York Times describes us as a scrappy desert outpost.
Nice.
Which is awesome.
That is
But
so
what,
cool
what
that
part
that
of
does that.
600 units, luxury units, how does that work?
Well,
Like, just saying.